Hello, Dan. Well, I'm going to try to see if I can give you some pointers on that radio with my limited skills, and forgot so much compared to what I used to know. And with your skills, I think maybe we can do something with it until we can get together and when the weather gets better, and maybe we can get it fixed. But why don't you check out a few of these things here. I've got a schematic for the RCA 87K, which, as you know, was in my family since 1957. My dad bought it at a yard sale when I was only about 12 years old. And he only paid $3 for it, I remember that. And he used to listen to that all the time back in the 50s and the 60s. So it has a lot of memories, and I know that you're doing a good job restoring it. But with the main primary of the power transformer drawing 3 amps, that's not normal. So I got a schematic online that covers the RCA 87K as well as 86K and 86T or whatever. There's a bunch of them there. I don't know if this is the exact schematic, but let's go over a few things and see what we can do. Okay, Dan, as you can see, this is the 86E schematic, 86K, 86K7, 86T, and of course 87K. So there's a bunch of them. All right, I don't know if we're in focus or not. I'm using the my Samsung W200. My son's W200 is out for repair by Buzz, and I'm sure he'll be able to straighten it out. So anyways, this radio here shouldn't draw 3 amps off the line. Now, I don't recall, it's been too many years, but there could have been a 5U4 I put in there, but a 5W4, 5U4, I believe, are basically the same. I think the 5U4 is a little heavier duty, but anyways, as I recall, your audio bias for the grid comes off of the filter choke. What you want to do is make sure that this 10 microfarad right here has been replaced, and make sure that the polarity of it is correct. Okay? And originally these caps were in those cans on top of the chassis. Now some of them are insulated from the chassis, and that's for a good reason, because your bias, as I recall, was, I could be wrong, 16 volts or thereabouts for the grid bias of the audio output tube. So make sure when you replace these that the polarity of, I believe this one here, it doesn't show a polarity, but make sure that it's proper, so that you get your a negative for, let's go up here, 2 is your 6G5 tuning iTube. All right, to your audio output stage, and looking at this, your cathode is grounded. There's your filament winding here. Here's your control grid here, goes to a 0.01. Now, back in the days when I restored this radio, which was way back in the 60s, so naturally the caps that I use are probably bad again, I upped these coupling caps to 0.1s to pass more bass. Although the radio had a good tone, basically these old radios, they kind of like sounded good. They're around 80 cycles, as I recall. It sounded boomy at around 80 cycles, and it sounds like you have a lot of bass, but it's really 70 and 80 cycle bass, you know, because that's the speaker resonance, and they weren't much, well, you ain't going to get all 20 cycles out of it, let's put it that way. So simple, they use a simple bass cut. Well, all it does is chop the highs, and there's several circuits here depending on, the model and so forth, that they used a simple switch. And I think this radio used a tone control, which is a little different. It just puts a potentiometer or set up as a rheostat to bring more of this cap in or out of the circuit to make it sound more bassy. The switch is closed for bass. The switch is open for treble. It's not really a bass tone control. All it does is give you the effect of more bass by chopping the highs. But anyways, my feeling is that if you pull this audio output tube out and you're not drawing 3 amps off the line again, and it drops way, way down, you know where the trouble is. The audio output tube could be gassy, so substitute 6F6 in this case. Although I think I put a 6V6 in there, gave a little couple of watt or two more maybe. I don't remember. I'm trying to go back 45, 50 years. So it's hard. My memory sometimes doesn't serve me too well. All right, so check that, because that could be a problem. You also could have a short in the primary of the audio output transformer. And as I recall, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the audio output transformer is mounted on the speaker frame. So just check that and make sure. And if you're in doubt, substitute another audio output transformer. You've got the humbucking coil, but that's simply in series with the voice coil. So you're not too worried about that right now. You just substitute another speaker temporarily. You leave everything alone. You just go off the plate of the audio, the 6F6 audio output tube, and down here at your this is not ground now, down here off of your screen grid, and just tap in another one, but disconnect one side of this. Make sure that you get the proper impedance transformer. Hopefully you have something you can put in there that's a close match. If you find that this audio output stage is drawing too much current. Okay, on your power supply, of course, naturally you've eliminated the current draw. You could, first of all, I would start by pulling the rectifier tube. If you haven't already done that, pull the 5W4, 5U4, whatever's in there. Pull that out. That'll take off the load of the B+, of course. And see if you're still drawing 3 amps in here. If you are, you've definitely got a problem. You could either have a short in one of your windings to ground. It's unlikely that the filament windings would short. What happens most likely is either your primary winding could get a shorter turn, or your secondary winding, high voltage winding here, could get a shorter turn or two, or you could have an isolation problem, breakdown of insulation between the core of the transformer and the high voltage winding here, the whatever it is, 325 volts each side of center tap. It's been too many years there, Dan, so, I'm going by memory. And, here's your plate 1 here, the full wave rectifier. Plate 2 takes off the directly heated cathode. And now your windings have to be insulated. This green wire winding, the ones with the green wires, the 5-volt windings, okay, they make very sure that there's no leakage between this and this, because this has got your high voltage on them from the rectifier tube when it's DC right at this point. AC on these plates, DC here. So you got to make very sure. I hope I'm in camera. I have a bad habit of not looking at the viewfinder. And if you got a breakdown in here. So this is very important to pull this out and see what you're drawing over here. If the current goes way down when you pull this out, it's not going to go to 0 because you still got your filaments of your other tubes being energized. So the only other way is pull all the tubes, and then you shouldn't get virtually nothing coming out of here. Very, very, very low current, lukewarm or cold power transformer. But you've checked it all, and if you checked it and you can get no leakage, and you find that you pull this out and your current drops way down, okay, then that means be careful. It could be this winding leaking to the here, or it's a draw on your B plus. So in which case, as I said, go back up to your audio output tube and look into that circuit. Okay, one other thing, if you find out that the current don't drop too much, let's say I'm guessing, let's say it drops an amp, you're still drawing 2 amps, well, that's what, 200 and some watts? That's too much for a radio like this. A radio like this should be under 100 watts, if my recollection serves me correct with my gray matter, which is getting quite dried up these days. And believe me, I was never what you'd call a radio expert. I'm no Dennis Carter. He's the fellow you want to talk to about radio theory. He knows his stuff. So give Dennis a lot of credit. He's a very, very smart man. Dennis, I'm giving you credit, and you much deserve it. Anyways, check all the screen voltages and plate voltages. Make sure any coupling caps that come off the plate and screens of the other stages aren't leaking. You replace them all, but make sure. Also, one other thing, Dan, this right here, see, here's your grid, here's your coupling capacitor, your grid bias. Check these caps, check these 2 resistors here. And also, going down here, we'll move the picture here, is going, it's this right-hand line here. It's going right here, right where I had originally told you. It's got the field coil, so be very careful. Check your bias here. This is going to be where your output tube bias is. If my memory serves me correct, and if I'm wrong, Dennis, please correct me. All right, Dan, this is about it. Just check all the resistors. You don't need to replace all the dog bone resistors in this set, unless they're off value by more than, the tolerance on these things, 20%. If they're off more than that, yes, replace them. This isn't a precise thing. So, you got to have some original stuff in there. If you put everything new in there, it's not going to have the same sentimental, well, you know what I mean? It's like rebuilding a person and taking all the insides out and putting all artificial in there. You gotta be kidding me. The spirit of it is going to be gone. Anyways, Dan, anything that's out of tolerance, more than 20%, yeah, I'd get rid of it. And make sure the caps are anything. Always check your electrolytics again. Make sure that the electrolytics are good that you put in there. Just recheck them. I hope this helps.